Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I don't know whether this counts as pro-revenge, but here's my story, which happened last year. I, 26F at the time, had just started dating Marcus, 28M, and things seemed promising. He was a very sweet man, educated and quite smart, with good looks. After 7 weeks of dating, he invited me and two of his childhood friends, let's call them Ryan and David, for a long 29th birthday celebration weekend at his father's beach house in a small coastal town in California. His father was going to be around as well, and I was very excited to meet everyone. Day 1, Friday, was fun. I immediately got along well with Marcus's father, James, an intellectual and warm-hearted man who spent the evening telling us stories about Marcus's childhood. "You should have seen him when he was little," James chuckled, showing me old photos. Always trying to organize the neighborhood kids into some adventure or another. Day 2, Saturday. After a very nice day exploring the town, we enjoyed a party in the backyard with the neighbors, including some of Marcus's local friends. After a few hours and plenty of drinks, a group gathered around the fire pit and started sharing childhood memories. This is where things went terribly wrong. At first, it was innocent and silly stories, as you'd expect. "Remember when we tried to build that treehouse?" Ryan laughed, nudging Marcus. But then Marcus and his friends started sharing really disturbing stuff. They told a story about how, when they were 14 or 15 years old, they found it hilarious to bully Nathan, a quiet boy at their school, for almost 6 months. It wasn't just typical teenage teasing. They went far beyond that. They created a fake girl profile on Instagram and spent months messaging him, developing a false relationship with the poor boy. "Oh man, remember how we used David's sister's photos?" Marcus said, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. "Nathan totally fell for it. He wrote these pathetic love poems," David added, clearly enjoying the memory. "We still have screenshots somewhere." Some people at their school were in on the joke, and it became a cruel running prank behind Nathan's back. They used pictures of David's actual cousin, and Nathan truly believed he had found someone special. He sent heartfelt messages and personal confessions to this fake profile. When they got bored, they set up a fake meetup, making Nathan take a 3-hour bus ride wearing a specific Pokemon t-shirt they'd insisted on. No one showed up, of course, and the next day at school, Marcus and David shared all of Nathan's private messages with everyone. Nathan stopped coming to class and eventually transferred schools. It's not hard to imagine how traumatizing this must have been for him. "We should have gotten him to send more embarrassing stuff," Marcus said, still grinning. "We were too soft back then." "Yeah, nowadays kids would have gotten way more dirt," Ryan agreed, taking another swig of beer. I felt physically sick listening to this. Marcus's father, who had walked up during the story, stood there with such disappointment in his eyes that it hurt to look at him. But Marcus was too drunk to notice anything wrong. "Marcus," his father said quietly, "I never knew about this. I'm ashamed." Marcus just waved him off with a drunk laugh. "Dad, it was ages ago. Just kid stuff." I couldn't take any more. I mumbled something about feeling tired and practically ran back to the house. Day 3, Sunday, was Marcus's actual birthday, and I had originally planned a romantic surprise lunch date before joining the group later. Instead, I woke up at dawn, packed my bags silently, and caught the first train home. I texted Marcus, "Happy birthday. Meet me at Pine Creek Lookout at 12:30 for your surprise. I need to set things up first." When he arrived, I directed him via text to a restaurant 30 minutes away. Once there, I encouraged him to order the most expensive wine while waiting. After he'd been there for almost an hour, frantically calling and texting, I finally responded, "How does it feel to have someone play with your feelings?" His friend Ryan called later. "What the hell? You've completely ruined his birthday." "Consider it a tiny taste of what you all did to Nathan," I replied and hung up. I blocked them all, though it wasn't easy. Despite my disgust, I had started to care for Marcus. In the following days, mutual friends called me immature and dramatic. One friend, Jessica, particularly laid into me. "You can't judge someone for what they did as a teenager. People change." But do they? Marcus spent months trying to win me back, sending messages through friends and even flowers to my workplace. I never responded. I don't regret it. I just hope Nathan, who should be around 29 now, is doing well. The next one is an entitled people's story. I never thought I'd have to go to court to prove I own my own land, but here we are. This whole saga started last spring when I discovered someone had installed a large iron gate across the entrance to my family's orchard. Let me give you some background first. I inherited this 12-acre piece of land from my grandfather back in 2010. It's been in our family for 3 generations, originally purchased by my great-grandfather in 1945. The property includes a beautiful apple and pear orchard that my grandfather planted himself in the 1960s. I grew up helping tend these trees every summer, learning everything about fruit cultivation from him. The land sits at the edge of what used to be a rural area, but suburban development has been creeping closer over the past decade. About 5 years ago, a fancy subdivision called the Groves at Willow Creek was built on the adjacent property. The developers tried to buy my land multiple times, offering what they claimed was above market value, but I refused. This orchard means everything to me. It's not just land, it's my family's legacy. The homeowner association president of the Groves, Karen Thompson, has been a thorn in my side since day one. She complained constantly about my tractor noise during harvest season, the occasional fruit flies in late summer, and what she called the unsightly appearance of my storage barn. I mostly ignored her petty grievances. That changed dramatically when I drove out to check on the trees one Saturday morning in April and found a massive wrought iron gate installed across my access road, complete with an electronic keypad. There was a new sign that read, "The Groves Community Orchard, Residents Only." I immediately called Karen, as I had her number from her previous complaints. The conversation went about as well as you'd expect. "Hello, Karen, this is John from the orchard next door. Would you care to explain why there's suddenly a gate blocking access to my property?" "Oh, John, I've been meaning to call you. Isn't the new gate lovely? The homeowner association board voted to incorporate the orchard as a community amenity. We'll be organizing picking parties and events for residents." I felt my blood pressure rising. "Karen, that's my orchard. You can't just declare it community property," she laughed dismissively. "Actually, we had our lawyer review the property records. That land was never properly subdivided from the original farm parcel that became the Groves. It's technically part of our development." "That's completely false. I have the deed and property surveys going back 75 years. "Well, our legal team disagrees. If you have concerns, you can bring them up at the next homeowner association meeting, but please don't try to remove the gate. It was quite expensive." I hung up before I said something I'd regret. I immediately called my friend Steve, who happens to be a real estate attorney. He agreed to meet me that afternoon to review my documentation. "This is nonsense," Steve said after examining my paperwork. "Your title is crystal clear. They're trying to pull a fast one, hoping you'll back down rather than fight it. We need to file for an immediate injunction to prevent them from accessing or modifying your property further." What followed was months of legal battles that I never wanted but refused to back down from. We discovered that Karen and the homeowner association board had been planning this takeover for over a year. They'd been spreading misinformation to residents about the orchard being included in their development plans and had even started advertising it as an amenity in their real estate listings. The first court hearing was scheduled for June. I arrived with Steve and 3 boxes of documentation: original deeds, surveys, tax records, agricultural permits, and photographs showing my family working the land over decades. Karen showed up with 2 attorneys from a prestigious firm, and what she claimed was proof that my property was never properly separated from the original farm parcel. Her proof turned out to be deliberately misinterpreted property maps and some creative legal theories that fell apart under scrutiny. The judge was not impressed. "Mrs. Thompson, are you suggesting that this family has been farming, paying taxes on, and maintaining this land for 75 years under some sort of misunderstanding about ownership?" "Your Honor, the original subdivision plans clearly show—" "What I see clearly," the judge interrupted, "is an attempt to seize private property through misleading claims and unauthorized modifications. This court will issue an immediate injunction requiring removal of the gate and prohibiting homeowner association members from accessing the property without owner permission." I thought that would be the end of it, but Karen wasn't done yet. She filed an appeal and started a smear campaign, sending letters to other nearby homeowner associations claiming I was destroying property values with my industrial farming operation. She even tried to get the county agricultural board to revoke my farming permits by claiming I was violating noise ordinances. That's when I decided to go on the offensive. Steve helped me file a countersuit for damages, harassment, and defamation. We also reported the homeowner association to the State Real Estate Commission for falsely advertising my property as part of their development. The case dragged on through summer and into fall. I had to install security cameras after catching several residents trying to pick fruit despite the court order. Karen kept insisting they had grandfathered access rights, whatever that means. The turning point came in October when we discovered something Karen never expected us to find. While digging through historical records to strengthen our case, I found documents from when the subdivision was first planned. The developers had actually tried to claim my land back then too, but my grandfather had won a clear legal victory establishing the property boundaries. Karen and the Homeowner Association Board had known about this precedent but deliberately hidden it from their attorneys in the court. When we presented this evidence, Karen's expensive lawyers suddenly became much less confident. They requested a recess to review new information. Lawyers speak for, our client lied to us. The judge was furious. She called an emergency hearing where Karen had to explain herself. Mrs. Thompson, did you knowingly withhold information about the previous court decision regarding this property? Karen squirmed in her seat. Your Honor, we weren't sure those old records were relevant. Not relevant. A court decision specifically addressing property boundaries isn't relevant to a property boundary dispute. Would you like to revise that statement? We were trying to improve our community's amenities. By attempting to steal someone's land, this court takes a very dim view of such behavior. The judge's final ruling was everything we'd hoped for and more. Not only did she confirm my complete ownership and order the immediate removal of the gate, but she also ordered the Homeowner Association to pay all my legal fees, over $45,000, required them to publish a retraction of their false claims in all their marketing materials, made them pay damages for trespassing and unauthorized modifications to my property, forced them to cover the cost of additional security measures I'd had to install, issued an injunction preventing any homeowner association board member from contacting me directly. But the best part? The judge ordered Karen and the board members to personally pay punitive damages for acting in bad faith and attempting to mislead the court. They couldn't use homeowner association funds for this. It had to come from their own pockets. The aftermath was spectacular. Within a week of the ruling, 3 board members resigned. The Homeowner Association's insurance company dropped them after learning about the attempted land grab. Karen faced a recall vote and was removed as president. My new security cameras captured the moment the gate company came to remove their installation. Karen stood watching from the street, arms crossed, as they dismantled her grand plan piece by piece. The look on her face was priceless. The story spread through the local real estate community like wildfire. Other homeowner associations in the area suddenly became much more respectful of property boundaries. I started getting calls from other small landowners asking for advice on dealing with aggressive homeowners associations. To really drive the point home, I decided to exercise my rights as a property owner in the most visible way possible. I installed my own sign right where their gate had been. Private property, historic family orchard, no trespassing violators will be prosecuted. Ask Karen how that works out. Okay, maybe that last line was a bit petty, but after everything they put me through, I felt entitled to a small victory lap. The following spring, I had my best harvest season ever. Several local restaurants and farmers markets signed contracts to buy my fruit, and I even started a small cidery operation. Every time I see delivery trucks driving past the groves to reach my loading dock, I think about Karen and smile. The whole experience taught me some valuable lessons. First, always keep your paperwork in order. You never know when you'll need it. Second, don't back down when you know you're right, even if the other side has more resources. And third, never underestimate the audacity of an entitled homeowner association president with too much time on her hands. My grandfather would have loved this story. He always told me to take care of the land and stand up for what's right. I think I did both. These days, things are mostly quiet. The new Homeowner Association Board keeps to themselves, and property values in the groves are doing just fine despite their dire predictions about my industrial operation. I did notice they removed all mentions of a community orchard from their website. Last week, I saw Karen at the local grocery store. She was examining apples in the produce section, probably not realizing they came from my orchard. I couldn't resist walking over. "Those are from my trees," I said cheerfully. "I can guarantee they're fresh. Picked them myself yesterday." She dropped the apple like it had burned her and hurried away. I guess some people never learn to appreciate locally grown produce. The whole incident actually ended up being good for business. The publicity attracted more customers interested in supporting local farmers, and I've expanded my operation to include educational tours for school groups. Nothing teaches kids about property rights quite like the story of how I had to defend my family's orchard from a land-grabbing homeowner association. I've since installed better fencing around the entire property, though I left one section of old fence intact, right where their gate used to be. It serves as a reminder that some boundaries shouldn't be crossed, no matter how entitled you feel. My attorney Steve still laughs about the case. He had it framed as one of his favorite victories, the day David beat Goliath with a deed in an apple tree. We celebrated the 1-year anniversary of our court victory by pressing a special batch of cider. I called it Karen's Comeuppance, limited edition of course. The best part of this whole saga? The trees my grandfather planted are still producing beautiful fruit, just like they have for decades. No homeowner association gate or entitled neighbor could change that. Every time I walk through my orchard now, I feel an extra sense of pride knowing I protected our family legacy. As for the groves at Willow Creek, they've got a new homeowner association president who seems much more reasonable. She even apologized for her predecessor's behavior and bought a few cases of my cider for their community events. I guess there's hope for neighborly relations after all, as long as everyone respects proper boundaries. My grandfather used to say, "Good fences make good neighbors." I'd add to that, and good lawyers make sure those fences stay exactly where they belong. Update. It's been 2 years since my legal battle with Karen and the homeowner association, and I thought you all might appreciate hearing what's happened since then. The biggest news is that Karen and her husband quietly sold their house and moved away about 6 months ago. I heard through neighborhood gossip that the legal fees and punitive damages from our court case forced them to downsize. Apparently, she tried to sue their lawyers for inadequate representation, but that went nowhere since we had proof she deliberately misled them. The new homeowner association board has been surprisingly reasonable. Last summer, they actually approached me with a legitimate business proposal. They wanted to organize supervised picking tours during harvest season, with proper insurance and liability waivers. We worked out a deal where residents can sign up for scheduled visits, and I donate a portion of the proceeds to the local food bank. It's been working well, everyone gets what they want, and it's all done legally and respectfully. Remember those security cameras I installed? They came in handy again last year when 3 teenagers tried to sneak in at night to steal apples. Turned out they were the children of former board members who'd supported Karen's scheme. The police had a good laugh when they saw the connection. The kids got community service, which they served helping me maintain the orchard under court supervision. By the end, they actually learned something about farming and respect for property. The legal aftermath had some interesting developments too. The State Real Estate Commission finished their investigation and fined the homeowner association's management company $25,000 for false advertising. They had to revise all their marketing materials and send correction notices to everyone who bought property there while they were claiming my orchard as an amenity. My attorney Steve used our case as an example in several real estate law seminars. It's apparently become a cautionary tale about homeowner association overreach and the importance of proper title searches. He tells me other homeowner associations in the region now specifically train their boards about respecting property boundaries. The cidery operation has really taken off. Remember that Karen's Comeuppance batch I made to celebrate our court victory? It went viral on local social media after someone shared the story. Now it's our most popular seasonal release. I even trademarked the name after a competing cidery tried to copy it. Some of Karen's former allies on the old board attempted to pressure the new homeowner association leadership into filing another appeal, but that backfired spectacularly. During a heated board meeting, the homeowner association's new lawyer, they had to find new representation after the last firm dropped them, literally pulled up my case file and said, "Unless you want to personally pay for another lawsuit, you'll definitely lose. I suggest we drop this permanently." The property value concerns Karen raised? Total nonsense, as expected. The Groves has actually seen increased interest because of my orchard. Real estate agents now advertise properties as overlooking the historic family orchard and walking distance to award-winning local cidery. Funny how things work out. I've expanded the business in ways I never expected. We now host educational programs for local schools, teaching kids about sustainable farming and local history. The irony isn't lost on me that the very thing Karen tried to steal has become a genuine community asset, on my terms with proper permissions and boundaries. Last month I received an unexpected letter. It was from Karen's daughter, apologizing for her mother's behavior and sharing some context I hadn't known. Apparently, Karen had tried similar schemes in their previous neighborhood and had to leave when it backfired. The daughter wanted me to know that our case finally forced Karen to face consequences for her actions, something that was long overdue. The legal precedent from our case has had wider implications. 3 other small farmers in the county have successfully used our case as precedent to fight off similar homeowner association encroachment attempts. The county clerk's office now has a special file about homeowner association boundary disputes with my case front and center. My security setup caught something interesting last week. Karen's replacement as homeowner association president was giving a tour to prospective buyers. I could hear her clearly on the camera audio. And over there is our neighbor's orchard. It's completely separate from our development, but we have a great relationship with the owner now that we respect property rights. Progress, I suppose. The gate company that installed Karen's unauthorized entry system, they now require written proof of ownership and permits before doing any homeowner association installations. They even called me last month to verify property lines when the Groves wanted to install a legitimate gate at their actual entrance. My grandfather's old deed and property surveys are now properly preserved and digitized. The County Historical Society asked to add copies to their archives as part of a project documenting local agricultural heritage. They're displayed right next to photos of my grandfather planting the first trees in the 1960s. The most satisfying moment came during last fall's Harvest Festival. We had record attendance, and several former board members who'd supported Karen actually showed up to apologize in person. One of them admitted, "We got caught up in Karen's promises about property values and amenities. We should have checked the facts ourselves." I've had developers approach me again about buying the land, but now they come with much more respect and professionalism. I still decline, of course. This orchard means more than money. It's about principle and heritage. Standing up to Karen and the homeowner association only reinforced that. The sign I put up where their gate used to be, I've updated it. It now reads, "Private property, Historic Family Orchard Est 1945, visitors welcome during business hours, authorized tours available." Sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding on your own terms. My orchard is thriving, the business is growing, and the community has learned valuable lessons about property rights and respect. Even the new Homeowner Association Board uses my case as part of their orientation for new members. How not to handle Neighbor Relations 101. I still have all the court documents and security footage archived, just in case history tries to repeat itself. But these days I spend more time planning future expansions than worrying about property disputes. Success really is the best revenge. As my grandfather always said, take care of the land and it'll take care of you. He was right. By protecting our family's legacy, I've built something even better than what I inherited. And not even the most entitled homeowner association president could take that away.